I'm good.
Good, good. Nice to see you.
Finally raining.
Yeah, it's raining, and then there's Owen sitting with the palm tree. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Hi, Owen.
Hi, Aaron. Long time no see.
Yeah, hi, John. As soon as you popped up, I yelled at Jason, like, John Stevenson's on my call.
Yeah, really nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
No.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good, good. And Eric, hello, and Kathleen.
Hi.
And your name's not really Helen.
No, we know that's my wife's name. It's Stefan. S-T-E-F-A-N. Huzan. H-U-Z-A-N. Northern Planning.
Okay, nice to meet you. And Chris is
Pleasure.
there as some sort of planet, I think.
Yes, hello. Nice to see you all.
Hey, Chris. Okay, so everybody, thanks for saying hello and introducing yourself. So we've got a roll call. We've pretty well done that already. Can we declare any conflicts of interest, please? Anybody have a conflict of interest at all? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. All right. Item number 4 is let's approve the agenda of the previous meeting. That was June 16th. That was the really long one.
Sorry, Simone, first we have to approve the agenda
Okay.
and get a
Sorry.
motion for that, and then we can review the minutes of the last
Okay.
meeting.
Can somebody approve the agenda, please?
Jim? And Eric, okay.
Okay.
And just a quick reminder to everyone that the meeting is being recorded and we do post it to our YouTube channel. That goes up tomorrow so that members of the public can see what's happening with the committee.
Okay. Okay, so the agenda's been approved. Okay, let's move on to item number 5. We'll review and approve the previous meeting minutes of June 16th. Has anybody had have you all had a chance to look them over?
I'll motion to approve.
Thanks, Eric. Anybody gonna second that?
Yeah,
Sorry, I can't see Jim. Maybe he's
I'll second that.
putting his hand up. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. How about business arising from anything going on, Flo?
So just to let everyone know that, and you may have seen in our latest water bill, we put out a newsletter, and I did provide updates on our project within that document. And that was discussed at the meeting last month. So that information has been updated and put out to the public. And then the second item, the member bios, that is posted to our website now. If you have not seen that, feel free to go on to the municipal website and have that information available to you.
Okay, thank you. Flo, it's back to you again with the Manitou's multi-use trails.
Okay, so Think Design has concluded its kind of one-on-one meetings with various stakeholders, and they have launched the public consultation site. So that is available now for people to review and participate. And it's www.manitouage-trails.ca. And the program that they're using is called Bang the Table, and we talked about that at a previous meeting. It's a public engagement software system, and it is the software system that we will be using with our public consultation for the community revitalization project. So I encourage you to not only review the trails public consultation site, but also to participate in it. So as of this morning, we had about 83 people sign on to review that website. So it is doing its job, and we hope to be able to get lots of really great information from members of the public about trails in Manitowoc. And I did send out a link to that in an email earlier today. So just to let you know that the public engagement software system requires you to create to register to use it. It requires an email address, but not your name. And you do have to agree to the terms and conditions of the software. It is moderated by staff at Bang the Table. And so similar to face-to-face public consultation, there are expectations about language and behavior. And it's actually staff at Bang the Table that will contact a registrant if they are using inappropriate language, or and they'll be given a second opportunity to clean it up and resubmit. So it is a very nice piece of software, and we're hoping to get lots out of it over the next year for sure.
Any questions, anybody? Okay, thanks, Florence. Now we've got number 8, the Community Revitalization Project, and we're going to get an update from Kim and Stefan. And I guess I'll hand the floor over to you guys.
Thank you. Now, I'm wondering, Florence, if you would either share on your screen the phase outline, or if you would allow me to share the phase outline for you.
I can allow you to do it because I didn't bring that with me as part of my package.
Okay. If you allow me, I'll just put it on my screen.
Okay. Do you have to tell me how to allow you?
Oh.
See,
Is it under the green? Sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest if you click on the 3 dots beside Kim's name and make her a co-host, then she would have access to share her desktop on her computer.
Hold on, I'm getting these messages now that I have to read. Okay, 1 minute. Make host.
Yeah. So Kim, you should have access to share screen. There you go.
Anybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so as Florence mentioned, I'm going to do a short summary of our current status, and then I'm going to turn it over to Stefan, who has a little more detailed information about the CIP part of the project. What I'm showing on the screen right now is the project work plan, or the outline of what we call the phase outline. And if you look on down the column on the left, you'll see there's basically 3 large phases to the project. We are currently in phase 2, which is community engagement, in the community engagement phase, and we're finalizing our content for the first of 2 public engagements. So here's the first one we have scheduled for right about now in July, and then the second one will take place early to mid-August. So the objective of the first public engagement is to explain what a CIP is and the process that's used to create it. And Stefan's going to go into that in a little bit more detail, as I mentioned. And then the second objective of this first engagement is to obtain public feedback on the priorities for the community improvement projects, so the CIPs. And then we take that information further into the next engagements to further refine it and develop those projects. So we've completed our stakeholder assessment, and we've looked at individuals, citizens, collective groups, walkers, hikers, gardeners, farmers market, shoppers, businesses, local businesses, demographic cohorts of teens, retired individuals, tourists, industry, clubs, and neighborhood areas, so streets and specific locations. And we've looked at developing questions for the engagement related to each one of those stakeholder groups. And we've also done our digital tool selection. So as Florence had indicated, they're using the Bang the Table platform. So we've tailored our content to use this platform as well. We haven't used this before as a public engagement platform. We were intending to do this in person, and this was of course before COVID-19. So what we've tried to do is look at the Bang the Table literature, and as I said, tailor our content to their platform. So we've chosen what they called controlled environment tools as digital tools. So if you go to the Bang the Table HQ, they have a sort of list of digital tools available. So we've chosen to set our specific questions in two forms. And the first form is polls, which are basically yes or no questions that provides like a very limited answer, either, as I said, a yes or no answer. And then the other form would be in the form of a survey, which allows a little bit of a longer response. So, and again, Stefan might go a little bit into more detail about that. When we do the public engagement, we request that we suggest that Manitowoc provides a link to their logo rebranding and the trail strategy and their First Nations engagement projects to link them together. So when you go to the public engagement related to just the community improvement plan, you will also have links to those other, projects, which would provide a nice continuity between them, and also get people thinking about responding to engagement questions. And then, as we said earlier, too, Form's going to provide additional documents in terms of the PDFs of the town layout, which we already have, and we're going to have key locations noted on there, and also some current state photos. So basically photos of what the areas look like at this point, and then for use in the future public engagement, in public engagement number 2. And we're also going to provide this phase outline that can be uploaded to the public engagement as well as a general kind of format to explain the process of the public engagement and the community improvement plan development, and also give you somewhat of a general timeline. We're not going to pin down any specific dates, but we have general a general time frame for the production of it. And then after the public engagement is complete, Form is going to create an analysis report and another project update that Manitowoc can post to keep the public informed and engaged ahead of the second public engagement that we're going to do. And so the first engagement will tie directly into the second engagement, and because there's a bit of time between the two, we want to make sure that we keep it up in the minds of everyone. And then finally, what we were anticipating, and just want to make sure everyone's clear on that, is that Manitowoc is going to complete a public engagement promotion through their electronic platform or your site, the township site, and also a hard copy mail out. I'm assuming it would be based on our stakeholder groups list that you would develop, Florence. Is that your understanding as well, or?
Yep.
Okay. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Stefan to go over his slides. And I'm just hoping I can stop sharing here. Turn it back over to you, Florence. So hold on one second. There you go.
Thank you.
Relinquish. Okay.
All right. Florence, did you receive the updated slides that I sent?
Yes, I have them, and I'm just going to put them up now.
In the meantime, a very brief backgrounder on community improvement plans. Authorized under the Planning Act, adopted by bylaw, the first bylaw identifies the area where a community improvement plan applies. The second bylaw actually spells out the community improvement plan, the kinds of programs and the kinds of expenditures that are generally intended in there. Historically, when this mechanism was adopted into the Planning Act, there was a lot of provincial and federal money available for community improvements, parks, sewers, and all of that kind of money is gone. And so there is a requirement for community improvement plans was to identify all those kinds of physical expenditures so that everyone was on board with the kind of physical improvements. Now, these days, it's simply left to municipalities because there isn't much federal or provincial money available. And so any of the public infrastructure improvements like roads, trails, parks, community facilities, those kinds of things identified in a community improvement plan basically come primarily out of municipal budget. But they would be identified in the community improvement plan. The other aspect of community improvement plan is the financial incentive programs. And these days, in the last decade or two, that's where a lot of the focus of community improvement plans has been, to identify programs which are available for private property owners, available from the municipality to private property owners for them to improve properties. And those programs typically come in three sort of forms, either grants or loans or special programs which relieve you from certain expenditures. So when we look at the slides, I've illustrated a couple of typical sample programs that could potentially apply here. And we can run through them, but just before we do that, I guess from my point of view as a planner, the primary focus of the whole public engagement idea is to identify, is for the public to identify, hey, these are the programs which we think are most important, which we want to see municipal dollars spent on, or which we don't want to see municipal dollars spent on. And so to identify those priorities and those important projects from the community point of view. So even though I've listed like a dozen here, you may end up only adopting 2, you may end up adopting 15. But they give you a feel for the kinds of incentive programs that are involved. So if we can run through, if you have the slides, if you could pop them up.
Oh, I am having some trouble.
Okay. Well,
Oh, wait, I think I fixed it. Look at that. Can you see the screen?
perfect. That's
Okay, great.
so. I've listed off 10 of them with your after some edits. And if we go to the next slide. Right. So permit fees is a very simple and cost-effective one. Application fees for building permits, planning permits are all given back. The fee is given back after the project is initiated. Typically, you might have 5 to 10 of these, and other than the administrative, the fact that you don't have a revenue stream from these permit fees, there's no net cost to the municipality. Next slide. Land incentive programs is something where municipalities have a large bank of land or various parcels all over the place. They could use those as leverage for development by offering them at a discount price to developers with conditions attached to that sale or to that transaction. Previously under municipal act, you had to always dispose of land at fair market value. So this allows you to dispose of land at less than fair market value for the reason of a development program. And again, typical condition would be, whoever purchased it needs to do something within a few months and get that construction completed. It's not expected that there'd be a lot of projects in this program, but it could be significant, particularly if you have important locations that you want to develop. Next one. The tax increase program has weird names. It's called the increment tax program or increment tax relief program. In a nutshell, when someone does a property improvement that results in increased assessment, then you would normally pay higher property tax. In this case, the program waives that increase in property tax. So the improvement you made to the property is tax-free for a number of years. It could be 5 years, 10 years. In this case, I suggested 12, could be 20, could be forever, to the point of 100% payback. And the eligible tax reduction is geared to the value of the project. So just a quick example, if someone put up $1 million building and the project was $1 million and their taxes would have increased by say 20,000 or 10,000 a year, that 10,000 a year increase would be relieved for until they used up the value of the project. But given the fact that buildings and projects, may have a 20 or 30 year lifespan, going much beyond that doesn't seem reasonable. And as a 10 or 15 year program, seems like a reasonable time frame for these kinds of improvement tax relief. And again, you're not gaining the additional tax from the improvement, but there's no net cost to the municipality. So that's the case with the first three. The next ones are all grants, which could be loans, but in this case, I've written them as grants. A new development grant, this is sort of for major projects where council will determine on the merits of a particular developer's proposal, whether they want to buy in and help with the funding of that project, whether it's $100,000, and usually criteria for these kind of things is job creation or beautification or a significant project. So there's not usually very many that come in this category, but every once in a while you come across a project which really benefits from council buy-in. So that would be a grant for a new development project analyzed on a case-by-case basis. Next one. Murals are often done in a lot of communities where they will grant two businesses some funds, usually typically 50% of the cost of putting up a mural. And often these things are either themed or, whether it's a historical theme or a recreation theme or a personality theme or whatever it is. And so they can be quite attractive programs, and usually you do tend to get a fair number of applications, half a dozen a year in this type of mural grant program. Next slide. Accessibility grants are more to add ramps or facilities that just make a building more handicap accessible. Often these things are seen as barriers to businesses, that have been seen as existing barriers to businesses. So the opportunity to improve those things is sometimes taken up quite well. And generally they help improve overall accessibility as well. Next grant. Landscape grants, in the case of properties where you'd like to see some greenery or some improvement in the greenery, especially if it's a significant element of the community identity, landscaping and greenscaping, then grants to businesses to improve their on-site green space are offered, and usually these include some guidelines about, here's the kind of approach to landscape improvement that we appreciate or seek to fund. And next slide. Environmental and brownfield studies. These ones, under the Environmental Protection Act, if there's a change of use, you often have to do completely forgot it because I don't like them. You have to do a study to determine that the site is clean. And these things can be quite costly, and sometimes they're a significant barrier to the redevelopment of a property. Let's say where there was a gas station, and they need to prove that there are no fluorocarbons left in the soil that might cause a hazard, or if there was some other industrial use on a property, or if it's a change of use from industrial to residential. So these environmental studies can be pricey, and so some help and from the municipality and getting those things out of the way as a barrier can be quite helpful, depending again on the nature of the sites available in the community. Next slide. Signage. This is more of an upbeat kind of thing where a commercial area has some strong identity, has identified identity as a significant issue and a certain character to the business district, and would like to have the signs reflect that. So these again grants in that area would be offered to the businesses to improve their signage. Again, like the landscaping one, consistent with a theme or approach that people have identified. Next. COVID. This one's a trickier one, but you'd probably be the first municipality to adopt it. COVID-19 has led to significant changes in public behavior and gathering. And there are some physical improvements for commercial access or gathering in commercial areas that might be helpful and could help a business survive this next little era that we're in. And so some grants to adjust the physical situation for COVID-related issues could be made available as well. So those are the kinds of grants and programs that are available, that are typically done through CIPs to assist businesses businesses and property owners in improving. There are other ones that are facade improvements or rental conversion things that sometimes people use, communities use to encourage certain kinds of changes. But this provides you with a starting list, and certainly could be expanded upon based on that list of all the potential projects that have been identified as possible community projects. That's the story on CIP. So the next slide is just a rough idea of what you might have to budget. So the programs, because they're net zero, the permit fee, the land, using your land bank and waiving tax increases are net zero. But if you were doing grants, the giant projects, the significant new development grant might be you might want to you might need to budget, 100,000 for that. But in the mural grants, based on the kinds of numbers I was talking about, maybe 40, and so on. And so this bundle of programs, we're talking about 225,000. If the municipality or the township is only looking to spend 100,000, then obviously you reduce them. If you're looking to spend more or able to spend more, then you might want to increase them, both either in the size or the potential number or the duration. So that gives you an idea of those that are, again, often these days the core part of a community improvement program, but still the physical improvement element identified by the community through your public engagement on streetscape and everything else is a significant part of the CIP. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Stefan. I just want to let everyone know that I've just let Stephanie Ash into the meeting, and Stephanie is making the presentation for the next part of the agenda. But does anyone have any questions about community improvement plan and what potentially would work well in Manitouwadge, or if there's any of those incentives that you think would not work well in Manitouwadge?
Well, if you allow me to start, I'm looking at this and what's coming to my mind is we have some bylaws that are in place right now. They're still fairly new, I believe, from last year, that are not being enforced when it comes to tidiness of, you know, lawns and landscaping and stuff like that, you know, junk that's left out front of people's homes. And, you know, and I'm like thinking, like, you know, instead of, you know, trying to go around and police it to maybe this community improvement plan where you're going to reward those, like, you know, who actually, you know, keep their stuff up, that are nice, like, you know, and make it public. Like, you know, it's, hey, you know, we're going to, you know, cut so much off your water bill this month because, like, you know, you always keep your yard clean, stuff like that. Because we all know that, I don't know if the bylaw officer is going around. All I know is I see the same junk piles in front of the same homes day after day. And I'm sure Simone can vouch for that. When she's showing, you know, potential buyers, new people moving in the community, and you're next door to someone who has a junkyard, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my first thoughts when I'm seeing stuff like this. Like, you know, I know the whole, the point of this is to entice people to actually do it, to make the community nicer, to beautify, and, you know, get more people that want to invest in our community. But at the same time, we gotta, you know, balance the scales a little bit also.
I actually do agree with you. In the research that I had been doing on previous reports and studies, I read about the need for cleanup of derelict properties or garbage, or the lack of enforcement on property standards bylaw, and your point is correct in terms of community improvement plans. Rather than using a stick as an incentive to beat people into improving their properties, this is more of a grant to entice them to improve them. Now, from what you said, I mean, it sounds like there might be room for a program for, you know, site beautification or site landscape or site cleanup grants or site cleanup loans, which might fall more closely into that exact niche of cleaning up a property where there's too much junk out there, or a property that has been let go and has not been painted or maintained as well as it could have been. So yeah, you're suggesting a cleanup program, cleanup grants as a possible program, and that might be a very good idea.
Or maybe something like a waiving of dump fees, you know, for a section of time to encourage people to clean up.
One of the other elements that's sometimes considered in these things is to activate community groups for program delivery. So for example, if you had cleanup projects, you might identify, there might be a volunteer organization in town that would love to do that and hire some kids to do that on various projects. And so the program might be geared to using a community group to implement it. And so you could have cleanup grants where there's a whole crew of people from one organization that will come and attack a property and clean it up in a short period of time, and get that done. And that way you're actually sort of get a little bit of employment, a little bit of volunteer activation that gives a sense of ownership to some of those improvements.
Just to kind of follow up on what Eric said, I think that Eric's got a good point about when we go up and down our streets, you see all these beautiful homes, and then right beside all these lovely homes, you see somebody that literally has a junkyard in their backyard. Mm-hmm. So our hands are tied because we can't really go to somebody's property and start removing stuff. So it has to fall on the township somewhere to have some beautification standards in our community that allow us to show our entire town with some pride. And being the resident real estate agent, I can tell you some horror stories I've heard from people that come into our town. I'm just so disappointed that they're looking out of a bed and breakfast, let's say, and they're looking at a junkyard across the street. What I think one of the biggest concerns I have with this town is, when are we going to start implementing some sort of property standard that we can be proud of?
Yep.
Maybe I'll chime in here for a couple of points. We did enact a new bylaw last year. Eric is correct about property cleaning. It is mandatory that we have property standards. It was identified in our strategic plan. We've put funding aside to create that bylaw, and the process was supposed to start this winter. And then we got tied into just workload and COVID, and it put a brakes on it. We have been doing enforcement under the new bylaw, and we have, I think it's 2 or 3 cases right now that are pending to go to court. And again, also court stuff has been suspended. So there is probably a lot going on in the background that people aren't aware of. We will not be able to get into the property standards until we can have a community meeting. I thought about Zooming and doing some of those things, but we're not going to get a full cross section of the community, I think. So we do have this on the radar. There has to be training for council as well involved in property standards, but it is on our radar screen. It is a priority and something we want to move ahead as well.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And just something on your incentives, Florence and I have had some just discussions about things, and the development, you know, like a land incentive, if you're familiar with price of lands in Manitowoc, real estate property, the vacant land itself is not expensive. Existing facilities can be a shortfall, even commercial stuff can be a bit of a shortfall. No problem waiving the fees or tipping fees. We haven't actually had tipping fees for residential garbage at the landfill site since, I think it's March 20th. Due to COVID, we stopped that transaction at the landfill site. So residents have had 3 tipping fees since March. I think a lot of it is about securing funding for projects and maybe guaranteeing funding or helping secure funding by way of guarantees, as opposed to, it's not the price of the land, it's all the other stuff that you got to build and do and the cost of doing that, or just being able to secure the money to do those things. So some of the stuff is fine, but you know, like if you're familiar with real estate at all, to buy a house in Manitowoc is not terribly expensive. There's not a lot of commercial space available, but there is a lot of vacant land available for development. So some of the traditional improvement program incentives, I think we could still work on a list for Manitowoc of stuff that would be, the tipping fees can be a hurdle for a big project, a big commercial project. So that's certainly a good one. Building permits, not a problem to waive those and that, but I do think we need to somehow look at securing access or guareeing funding if somebody is applying for it.
Sounds good.
We did that with the houses back in the early round when Newmont closed its gold mine. We did that with Canadian Housing or Mortgage. We guaranteed mortgages and backed them up, and that helped houses sell, and maybe a similar type program for investment in especially commercial property.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's worth pursuing.
Yeah, just Owen, just on that point really quickly, Florence as well, for those new development grants, there is a program through the NOHFC called the New Investment Project Stream, and it's specifically for bringing large scale, like significant investment into a new area in Northern Ontario. So if you are working with an investment attraction consultant or some kind of firm that you're trying to convince to come up here, like early discussion with, like I would have the conversation to those like talks, like the early discussion with the province or NOHFC might be able to support aspects of that relocation as well. So
Kathleen, your point's a good point. And sometimes just being able to leverage that NOHFC grant with a little bit more from the municipality is enough to carry a project over the biggest hurdles of start. So,
yeah.
I don't know if Florence has mentioned, we've just entered into a program with the mine, kind of a COVID stimulus, and there is some small loans that could be used as seed money there for people as well. That could be helpful. The timing might fit well into what we're working on here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, you guys? No? Thank you very much, Stefan.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I guess we're moving forward to Stephanie. I believe. Is Stephanie with us, Flo?
I am. Good
Good,
evening.
yes. Welcome, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. How's everybody doing?
Good, good. Okay,
So I'm.
Go ahead.
Hi, John. Nice to see you. So thanks for inviting me tonight. So I don't know if Florence circulated the package earlier today. So based on our last meeting, we took away your feedback and came up with a few design options to discuss this evening. So obviously all of them are based on the concept of the better natured tagline and speak to the brand attributes that we had previously submitted with the brand package in terms of what the overall strategy was to be based upon. And so I can go through them individually, but you'll see some common themes, I think, based on our first drafts that we had sent to kind of get a pulse check of what type of design styles you liked. We took away that feedback and in this kind of round tried to get closer to what you'd let us know. So the first, are you going to pull those up there, Florence?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Sure, I'll wait. So the first concept here, of course, has the M again featured in it prominently, but is kind of built into this concept of trees. And we took away from the last meeting that you really wanted the mountains to be included in the logo. So with the ski hill being a prominent feature of the community and a differentiator. So we included the M and tried to infer that mountain feel into it, with the trees being a secondary position, but that actually form the M symbol underneath. So, and then of course the sunset being there, or the sunrise, whichever way you choose to look at it, in terms of being a place that has amazing daylight hours, being central in Canada and northern in terms of your geography, one of the big assets that we heard through that community open house process, and also is part of why you're better natured in terms of how many hours of sun you get per year, and really just kind of plays on the M significantly to capture that feel of better natured. We also tried to make the M act as a gateway, if you like. So if you could imagine it almost as a gateway or an entry point into the community. We talk a lot in the brand positioning document around being a welcoming community. And so we wanted to give that concept that there's openness and space, and that you're welcoming an open doors almost concept. So it feels like there's a lot of light through those tree designs there to enter into the community. So that is a little bit of a brief, and you'll see that we always show kind of what the logo would look like, kind of white on black and grayscale and things like that, just so you can see how it might play out in different types of situations. So then if you go to the second version, this is a similar rationale to the first one, but it's a little cleaner in terms of the color choice, and really pulls on the blue and the green and really the nature feel. We felt that this design was a little bit more modern and contemporary, and we wanted to position this design because we'd had a good discussion last meeting for about an hour around that beyond the city being a second kind of runner-up in terms of a tagline. And so We've got the Beyond the City group, people who wanted that tagline. We're looking for something that would speak to a little bit more contemporary, younger audience. And so we felt that this design was a little bit cleaner, a little bit more transitional, if you like, in terms of its style. So fits the kind of balances that traditional and contemporary, and is very symmetrical, very clean. Again, the white of the trees shows that we're a winter destination, with the blue and the green also speaking to you know, the other seasons. So an all-season city with the color choices that are there. And I know some of these things sound a little abstract, but this is kind of the process that our designers go through in terms of their thought process when they're saying, how do we infer that this is an all year round place to be? We need to incorporate all of these elements. And we still feel like we've got the mountain feel as well in this logo, in the peak of the M. And as well, similar to the first choice where it's open, it's got a lot of white space in the M, so that, you know, come on in, we're here, come visit, come live, come do business. We're a welcoming and open community where there's lots of space, and we're not a kind of a city destination, right? So very clean in terms of this style. And then in terms of the color, actually I should mention for this one, we did a really good audit of all of the other municipalities around you to try and find blues and greens that were not typically used everywhere else, because it really is a challenge in terms of trying to differentiate. So we tried to find a palette here that had some different tones in terms of the color choices to try and again help you stand out. And we always put kind of the logos side by side with other municipalities, because we know you do a lot of partnership type of work, and so making sure you would look unique and be different in terms of your choice of color. So that was the second option in the package. The third option is a very simple, traditional style. So again, trying to give you options that spoke to all of the feedback. The font in this design is very traditional, and the style of it is almost like an old school water acrylic type of style. So if you're looking for a very simple, clean, a little bit more traditional logo, this would be that type of option for you. And just two colors, very simple. Again, showing the nature on the land and the mountains. And you'll notice there's lake in these logos. We felt that with the color choices, we didn't have to talk about water as much, and that your differentiator compared to your other surrounding communities, again, was this kind of ski hill mountainous, more rugged concept that you have. The fourth choice. So you remember in the first batch, we gave you ones that had love hearts in it, because we were looking at in the heart of nature being the tagline at the first round. And we didn't want to get away too much from the concept of that you still are in the heart of nature. We talked a lot in the brand positioning document that you're a really caring, kind community. You take care of each other as well as newcomers to the township, and that there's a really friendly, warm feel to the township of Manitour. So we did do a couple of options that spoke to that. And of course, the tagline "Better Natured" was always intended to be a double meaning in terms of we're better natured people, we're friendlier than the average folks, as well as better natured because of your outdoor assets. So the better natured, this one plays on both kind of meanings with that tagline. And then the last one here is another play on better natured. So you'll see that the M in this logo is also that mountain type of look to it. The sun is in there again in terms of the come north, we're better natured, but the warmth color of the sun there speaks to that welcoming, warm spirit of the community. And it's a very fine detail, but if you look around the sun, it's actually people that form the rays around the sun. And so the concept of we're friendly, welcoming, warm people is actually in play there in the design with this look that looks like the sunshine rays, but is actually the friendly folks of Manitouage. So a couple of different approaches there, but all with the M being really front and center in this logo. And you'll notice too that we gave you very clean fonts. Our original fonts were scripty, and you had given us the feedback that you felt that scripty did not work for Manitouage, and you wanted to see more solid font styles. So the fonts that we've put in this package are all very simple, clean fonts that are easy to read from a distance, and you don't have to struggle to kind of see the script lettering. So I'll leave it there for comments, thoughts, feedback.
Questions, anyone? Feedback? How about comments on the logos? Anyone?
Yeah, honestly, like if we're gonna start talking about preferences already, I've already got a favorite. Cody sent me kind of a little script that he really liked also. Option 2, I feel it's more modern. It's new, it's different. Like, you know, if you go down one slow to option 3, first thing I thought of option 3 is like we're hardly changing anything from our present logo, because even though, like, you know, it's the same colors and whatnot, like, I don't know, for some reason it just reminded me of what we already have. But I really like option 2, and Cody shared that sentiment. It's bold, it's different. Option 1, actually, the township part, I find that when it's like the 1.75 width, can't really make out the township. But on the second one, you can make it out a little bit better. I don't know if that's just a computer thing that I'm looking at right now, but there's just something that jumped out at me.
Anybody else want to throw some thoughts in there?
I would agree with Eric. That would be my choice. Would be the second one for sure.
Yeah, I like that one as well.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's bolder. Okay, so I guess we can move on to next steps, Stephanie.
Simone, I have a question or a comment, if I may, for a second.
Go ahead.
Again, we talked today briefly, and it used to be years ago, when you said township, it meant you were a population of such, or town, you were a population of such, or a city, you were a population of such. They don't use that designation for that anymore. In our papers of incorporation, yes, we are the township of Manitouage. Just a thought, is it necessary here? What if we just had Manitouage, better natured, and didn't have the township of? It unclutters it a little bit. And when people are talking, they don't say the township of Manitouage. They just say Manitouage.
If you're asking my opinion, that would be our preference, because it takes out text, and that's always nicer in a logo to have as little text as possible. We did that with Nipigon. We didn't include the town of Nipigon. We just had Nipigon. So if we have approval from your municipality to take it out, we certainly will.
Yeah, I think it makes in today's world, the fact that those words don't define you anymore, They
Yeah.
don't need to be there.
And it's interesting because we've had this discussion in our office, even when we're working with multiple towns. It's, well, why are they a town? Why are they a township? Why are they a city, right? How do you differentiate? And I think it does cause a little bit of confusion. I know even on the North Shore project, some of you are townships, some of you are towns. And so what's the difference? We get asked that.
And
a
in
lot.
today's, we could call ourselves a town tomorrow or the village, whatever we chose. It's not a standard anymore, so.
Yeah, and I think the only rationale that I would suggest that might be beneficial for Manitouage is because it's an unusual word, Manitouage. So if someone sees it and they've never heard of it, would they know that it's a town or a place even, as opposed to a clothing brand or whatever else it could be, right? So adding the township of Manitouage in there does let people know that you're a location and a place, because you don't have really top of mind awareness. This is a destination. That would be the only thing I would kind of, I'm always devil's advocate, right? I always try to think of both sides.
Stephanie, it's not really my place, but perhaps a compromise is to put the word township only after the word Manitouage. So instead of the township of Manitouage, better to natured, it's Manitouage Township, better natured.
The only thing that doesn't help with is actually from a design point of view, because then when you're looking at how we stack lettering, it's nice to have Manitouage centered with the tagline underneath and the kind of the descriptor at the top. Because then if you imagine that it would have kind of 2 levels of small green text underneath, it just doesn't look as nice. What we could do is give you both options. So where you could have one that you may use depending on where it's being used, right? So I don't know, I know it may be something to check with the municipality about in terms of on your corporate documents, do you have to have the word the town or the township in there? Or could it be just, Manitouage on its own?
Yeah, our papers of incorporation say the township of Manitouage. And, certainly when we're signing agreements, we could easily do that and that will still apply. But on something like this, to me, it's just more stuff that gets in the way.
I agree. It would make it much cleaner if we got rid of it, for sure. It would be nice to have just Manitouage. And my marketer in me tells me that everybody will know that Manitouage is a town when you roll out your new marketing, right? So
it's a speaking point.
It is, yeah, for sure. That's the challenge with the name of your community, right? Is it's an unusual word. It's a long word. So it gives you a few constraints in terms of how it's applied for things.
You should see them roll their eyes when we tell them our address is 1 Mississauga Drive just after we just got them over Manitouage.
For sure.
I agree with Owen. I think taking the township of, taking that right out would be a lot cleaner and neater.
I think the way you have the M in this logo does look contemporary. It is nice. I don't know, maybe if the trees at the bottom part of it were a little bolder, maybe for me, I just think, but I agree. It's very contemporary.
Yeah, it looks really nice at small scale too, right? So if you always think about things on, letterhead is not particularly large size application of a logo, right? I mean, it looks really clean from a distance. You can clearly see the M, but you can also clearly see the trees and the mountains from a small scale. So it will help you to really be easily identified. Some logos, you kind of have to look closely at them when they're really small, and you'll probably think, if you think, when you see them in a newspaper and they cram a lot of logos in in a print ad on the bottom, it's really hard to see what they are from a distance. So we always try to design clean logos that are very easy to be like, that's the Manitouage logo, and I can tell just from the shape. So it will help you create that brand awareness much quicker.
So I think this logo is phenomenal. I really, really like it. And it would be my #1 choice as well, even though I don't have a voting card. My only, I guess, quirk would be is that when it is just a small, if it's on a letterhead, the top of the M's, because the mountains are shaded out white and the M's not outlined and the trees aren't outlined, it kind of fades away. You can't, it's not really predominant, but when it's the white on.
So you're only going to use it at certain scales, right? And so we can certainly test it out again for you for that with how we outline the top of the M where you're speaking about. And I will test it for you at different scales and on different digital as well as print applications just to make sure. But it should display just fine if it's printed at the right resolution.
Okay, any more comments or questions for Stephanie, anybody? So Stephanie, I guess we got to move on to next steps.
Sure, so we will package it up for you with all the different variations of it, different sizes and formats, and give you a logo package and as well as a brand use guideline. So that will give you some guidelines in terms of how to use the logo for different things. So whether it's on printed material versus on a billboard versus on a gateway signer in the community or on apparel like hats, t-shirts, things like that. So one of the things we find people run into trouble with is they keep one version of the logo and then they send it out everywhere for every one of their needs, and then it starts to not look crisp and clean as it was intended to be. So we give you some there'll be about 48 versions of the logo in the package that we give you, and very clearly labeled with what to use for what type of process, and what not to do with colors. And so the Pantones will be in there so that the colors stay true to what they are. And so over time, when I see you in 3 years, I don't come to Manitouage and see kind of a different green and the M's being shifted and there's another blue that's being added and someone added a sun in the background, right? Like that's how that happens over time. So we'll give you a very, very clear guidelines on that. And then it's yours to launch and roll out as you see fit.
Stephanie, is that vectored stuff? So if they do put it in a computer or do something, it holds true?
Absolutely. We will only give you things that will never be allowed to be manipulated, if you like.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I see it, I'm really bad at this. I call clients from 10 years ago and I say, I just saw your logo and I can't believe you get to it.
Yeah.
Let me help you. So yeah, no problem on that for sure.
We had the discussion today in the office, Florence and I too, like this has to work on our business card and it's got to work on our flags.
Yeah.
You know, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and I really love, for me personally, I'm glad you chose this one. It was my favorite too. And because I like the concept for me in this, that it looks like it's almost like a natural gateway sign too. When I think about entering into a community, to me, I see this as a bit of a gateway symbol as well. So, you know, I think using this as an entry kind of marker as well for your trails and things like that, it just feels very open and kind of directional almost. That, you know, where the M points north, and we talked about that beyond the city concept. And with the white in the M too, almost makes me want to drive through it, right? So I think it feels very open and welcoming that way. So I think with knowing what you're doing with your community planning as well, I think it will really work well.
Stephanie, I'm not sure if anybody else noticed this, but those two M's that are not the two M's, but the two white trees are almost like directional arrows to go down the road. I like that.
Yeah, so I think you'll be able to kind of, I think it will fit. I think it will really fit with what you're trying to do. And, you know, I struggled with the mountain thing because I really personally don't think of Manitouage as being a mountainous type of community, but I know the ski hill is really important to the community. So for me, this suggests that there's the ski hill there without being too mountainous. I mean, we're not BC here, right? So I think it's subtle enough that it doesn't go too far on the mountain side, but because the M allows us to kind of get away with that a little bit there. So I think I I agree. I'm glad that you that choice.
Okay, any other questions or comments, anybody?
Can't resist. I have a really quick comment. I love the white on black, the logo down in the lower right corner. I think it's super strong, like really strong. And if you know, depending on what you do with township of the township of, if that was like just the mountains and then Manitouwadge underneath it, I could see that like stickers on somebody's Thule coming away from the ski hill and everyone going, what's Manitouwadge? And like, you know, Googling it and stuff. It's really it's kind of edgy, you know, like without the township, it's like, what is that? It's a little exotic. So it really works well, the one down in the right corner. So
it just looks like a landscape from a distance, right? Like it doesn't look like an M. It looks like just a landscape scene.
Yeah. Totally agree with you, Kama.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally different than from with the white trees. It's like a silhouette when you look at it with the black and white.
Yeah.
Totally changes the whole thing.
It's like at night or something. It's just a little bit more edgy. I can really see it. Like even if you didn't have the township of, like you just had the mountains and then Manitouwadge, very, very strong, really strong.
Yeah.
So think about when you're thinking about materials, and I know you work with John and he's fabulous at this stuff, but even in terms of the materials you can apply this to, using that type of style of the logo, whether it's etched onto wood or onto stainless steel, things like that, you can really make that pop, depending on what the materials are that you're using for other features in the community. Doesn't always have to be white vinyl with a colored printed logo on it, right? So it will lend itself well to some nice craftsmanship.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie. That was very informative and nice job.
Thank you. Well, have a good evening and appreciate everybody's time, and we'll speak soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Stephanie.
you. Good night.
I have a question for the members. So your job now is to, when Stephanie provides us with the logo standards manual, you will be making a recommendation to council to approve and adopt and implement the logo. And of course, it is council's decision whether they accept it and approve it. But I'm wondering if there is interest in launching this through our public engagement software program to get some input from the public. So when we write our report to council, asking them to implement this, that you have a good sense of what the public feels about it. And we could take the next few weeks to do that. So maybe the August council meeting, we have that information back from the public. And just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's a good idea, especially after you sent out the newsletter explaining, you know, a little bit what we're working on and whatnot. It'll give them a little bit of they'll buy a little bit of buy-in now. They got the letter. Now, if you put that out there, you probably get a lot more people that'll comment on it than what you got, you know, when you first started the whole process. So I think it's a great idea. I wouldn't give them any choices though. I would just give them one logo that we decided on today. And what do you guys think about this? And just see where it brings us.
Some of them are going to obviously watch the video that Florence is going to post from tonight, obviously. So, you know, they'll hear our discussion. I think that's going to add to your feedback when they listen to some of the points that were raised this evening. I think it'll help.
Okay, so is the question that we're asking the public yes or no? Or is it keep the old logo, support the new logo? Or is it open-ended, provide input?
I wouldn't give them any choices. The reason why, and we go through this all the time, change is difficult for a lot of people. The minute you propose something new, it creates anxiety, uncertainty, whatnot. We've already identified that the logo is like 50 years old and it needs to be updated. I think I would make it open-ended. Like, you know, this is a whole process. And like Owen said, you can always go back to all the other videos and all the other discussions and everything that's brought us to this point. I would just say, just use this logo and say, what do you guys think? What's your honest opinion? Like, how does this speak to Manitowoc to you? Or, you know, what pops out? What do you identify with in the logo? And just leave it like that. And then from there, it'll give you a lot of input, a lot of suggestions. And you're really, you know, the minute you say yes or no, no is negative. It's like, you know, I would stay away from that field and make it really positive. Like, what do you guys think? It's time for a change. It's time to, you know, like this, like you and Owen made a point. This has to fly on our flag. Well, this is going to be a beautiful flag, right? The old logo, you can't really make out what was on the logo, right? It's like that emblem with the miners. It's too hard to see on a flag. Well, something like this won't be hard to see. You'll be able to spot this. And I think people will get behind it. It's really nice. It's modern.
Florence, do you expect to have it back from Stephanie without the words the township of and use that as what you would display to the public?
I think she could turn that around really quickly for us to get that up on the website, and then she could work on the style manual. Yep. Yeah.
I don't believe there's a legal issue. I can verify that tomorrow. I don't see a big deal, but I don't think, I just think it brings it a lot more modern again without that there and cleaner.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's a new one for me. I didn't realize that there's no population restrictions for the hamlet, a town, a township anymore.
Yeah, there used to be standards and you're not held to that anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
So I'm sorry, maybe the question that we ask is, do you want the township of Manitowoc or just Manitowoc? So you're not giving them a choice on the design, it's what the wording is.
This logo with it in and this logo with it out?
Yeah.
May I chime in? I'm thinking just keep it out, the township, but my thoughts are too, when you are presenting this to the public, I would recommend that we put that this logo is replacing the prospectors. Plain and simple, stop the confusion. This is this is the purpose of it. And because everybody's getting confused with the plain extreme logos, and that's something totally different. So I think that's the major part, is this has to be explained that this is the new modern logo that we want to replace prospectors. Period.
Just a quick question. Is it possible to use, I'm just going on a limb here, is it possible to use both of them, one with the Manitowoc and then one without the township?
Yeah.
You know how we were talking about the black and white one at the bottom?
Yeah.
If you take the township out and you just see Manitowoc, that's a real striking logo.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is. And if you left the other one with the township in it, it's just a suggestion. I'm just thinking, I mean, could you actually do both?
Oh, like they would be our final versions and we can use one or the other?
Or both.
Or both, right.
Like on some types of signage, you would just have Manitowoc, and on other ones, you have the township of Manitowoc.
Yeah, like if we had letterhead going to other government organizations, we might want to use the township of Manitowoc.
Mm-hmm. But if we had a logo on a cup or a t-shirt, just the black and white with the Manitowoc is very striking.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I mean, like Jim, I mean, you've got cups and things like that going on. I don't know, would it look really nice on a cup to say the township of Manitowoc or just Manitowoc Better Nature?
Well, actually, we play with those a lot, and a lot of times it depends on what you're putting on the mug and what color, what size mug, and so on. So there's lots of changes, because a lot of times when we get them made up, we look at it and say, yeah, that was our idea, but it doesn't look good on that mug. So no, redo it. So that type of thing. So it all depends what you're putting it on.
So is it possible to go back to Stephanie and ask her for both versions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
But
See,
the
if I could
question at
interrupt.
hand here, yeah, so I think the question at hand here is, are we going to put that out for public consultation? I don't think that's a good route. I think that should be put forth to council. Like, you know, I think you should just put out what's simple, mountains, Manitowoc, better natured, and it'll be up to council to decide if they want to drop the township or use it at different, you know, they can decide when they're going to use the township, when they're not going to use it. I don't think, I think the list, if we make it simple, we're going to get more feedback. But if we end up asking the public too many questions, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Well, then it just having a committee.
No.
So
Excuse me.
I'll ask our member of council, if you receive a report from the committee and asking you to accept this logo, would you want to know that the public has had a chance to comment on it before making a decision?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something you want to bring to the public and see, because if we have, you know, if everybody is totally against it, well, then we're back to square one. You know, you don't want to take something new and ram it down their throat type of thing, even if they don't like it. So, but I am hoping that if we compare it to the proper logo that we're replacing, I think that's where we're going to get a lot more positive feedback.
Okay, that's helpful.
Hey, Florence, I have to step away there. I just want to say thanks to everybody for your time. See you later.
Okay, thanks, Owen.
You're right.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll draft up what the page will look like for the public engagement and send it off to you to review, to the members, and let me know what you think and if you're comfortable with what we're asking. It'll just be a one-page compare the old logo to the new logo, replace, update, however we will word it.
And are you going to also put that on Facebook and the website?
Yeah, so just let you know, like, we've called our new public engagement software My Manitowoc. And so, like, we're just going to use it for so many different things, but we will put it on the My Manitowoc page, and which is where the trails projects will be, and the community improvement plan, and the community revitalization, and other updates as well. So people will just have to register once, and then they'll be able to go on and see that site and provide their input. And so we will link, we'll put it on Facebook so people can see it and where to go to comment on it, which is the My Manitowoc page.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Yeah, as far as the My Manitowoc, I think that it's in itself needs to be promoted more on the social media for people to start going that route.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just building the back end right now, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to launch it by Friday.
Okay, anybody else? Any other business? Nobody else? I'll take that as a no. Okay, next meeting date. We've got two choices down here, Tuesday, August 18th and Tuesday, Tuesday, August 18th. Are we all good for that date?
Yeah, so what will happen is I will have a report ready for you for Tuesday, August 18th with the feedback from this public consultation on the logo.
Okay.
And then at that meeting, you will make a recommendation to council. So it would go to, I'm just looking at dates, the council meeting, I think would be September the 9th.
Yeah, it would be August 12th or September the 9th, yes.
Okay, so council will get the report with the logo recommendation at their September 9th meeting.
Okay. So next meeting is Tuesday, August 18th, everybody. And if there's nothing else, I guess we can ask for a motion to adjourn.
Eric, at 8:20.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining us tonight and all the great information.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.